Hey everyone, have you ever thought about how calling in sick is like it's its own little performance?
It really is.
Today we're going to do a deep dive into the language we use on those days when we're feeling under the weather,
Yeah.
when we have to call in sick.
Yeah.
And we're dissecting a Fluent Speak podcast episode that I think you'll find really interesting.
Mhm.
They break down some really useful phrases, but what I thought was really fascinating is they also get into some cultural differences around calling in sick
Oh, yeah. That's a really good point.
that I never even thought about. Like, did you know that in some places, it's totally normal to have somebody else call in sick for you?
Oh, it's true. Yeah, in some cultures, that's completely acceptable.
Like what?
It's wild.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll get to that. First, let's jump into the Fluent Speak episode.
Okay.
They start with this role-play dialogue between an employee and a boss,
I like that.
which I think is such a great way to learn by example.
Yeah.
But what's interesting is the first attempt at calling in sick kind of falls flat.
Really?
Let's hear why.
Okay, I'm ready.
I think you'll find this interesting.
All right, lay it on me.
Let's listen to
Uh-huh.
this not so convincing phone call.
All right.
I think you'll see what I mean.
Okay, let's hear it.
All right.
So I'm already getting tough it out and come to work vibes from that boss.
Right.
Julie does not sound convincing.
No.
What makes it fall short? Is it just the tone, or is there something else going on?
I think tone plays a big part, definitely.
Okay.
It's about more than what you say, right? It's how you say it.
Yeah.
And there's something about her delivery that's lacking that genuine, I need to crawl back into bed energy.
I see what you mean.
Yeah.
But even in this less than stellar attempt,
Yeah.
she uses some phrases that are worth noting, right?
Absolutely. Let's break those down.
Okay.
So she starts with, I'm feeling quite ill today, which is a very straightforward way to signal you're not well.
Yeah.
Clear to the point.
Yeah.
Then there's, I'm coming down with the flu, which suggests it's just starting and might get worse.
Oh, that's interesting.
That's interesting because it implies a sense of responsibility, you know?
Yeah.
Like she's trying to catch it early and not spread it around the office.
Smart. It almost makes you sound more dedicated
Yeah.
for calling in sick now before things get really bad.
Exactly.
Like, I'm doing this for you.
Right. It subtly suggests you wouldn't be calling in sick unless it was absolutely necessary. Right.
Okay, so she's using some good phrases.
Yeah.
Even if the delivery isn't quite there yet,
Mm-hmm.
I'm guessing the second dialogue they played is where the magic happens.
Let's see if you can spot the difference.
Okay.
Here we go.
Oh, wow. Just hearing that, ugh, not great, makes a huge difference.
Right.
It sounds way more believable this time.
Yeah.
Even though the words themselves are similar, the way she delivers them is completely different.
Exactly.
It's like night and day.
It's the pauses, the tone, the little details
yeah.
that convey genuine discomfort.
Right.
So much is communicated beyond just the words themselves.
It's like a whole other language.
Yeah, it's a great reminder that context is everything.
Yeah.
But before we dive deeper into that,
Okay.
remember how we mentioned the cultural differences around calling in sick?
Oh, right. That's where things get really interesting.
Yeah.
Like that whole thing about having someone else call in for you.
Yeah.
What's the deal with that?
Well, the Fluent Speak hosts highlighted a fascinating practice in Egypt.
Okay.
Apparently, it's quite common for someone else, maybe a family member or friend,
Really?
to make that call for you.
Wait, seriously?
Yeah.
That's so different from what we're used to. Why would they do that?
Yeah.
Is it like a cultural get out of work free card?
It seems to stem from this belief that if you're well enough to make a phone call,
Oh.
you should be well enough to work.
That makes sense from a certain perspective, I guess.
Yeah.
If you can talk, you can work.
Right.
But I imagine it could lead to some awkward situations. Like, what if you're really sick and you could barely talk?
Oh, absolutely.
Someone else is calling in for you, sounding all chipper.
Yeah.
It's a funny thought.
It definitely highlights how deeply cultural norms
Yeah.
can influence something as simple as calling in sick.
Totally. And it raises a fascinating question.
Yeah.
How do these different cultural contexts shape the way we perceive a convincing sick voice?
Right.
That's a great point. I'm already thinking about how my own sick voice might be interpreted differently in another culture.
I know, it's crazy.
This is mind-blowing. And we've only just scratched the surface.
It is mind-blowing.
Yeah.
It really is. And thinking about my own sick voice, I realize I tend to speak a bit slower when I'm not feeling well,
Yeah.
maybe with a lower pitch.
You're right.
Yeah.
I do the same thing. It's like your body just wants to conserve energy,
Totally.
even when you're just talking.
Exactly. And that subconscious shift in our voice can be a powerful cue to those around us.
Interesting.
Studies have shown that people are more likely to believe someone is sick
Wow.
if their voice sounds weak or fatigued.
It's like our voice betrays us.
Yeah.
Even if we're trying to sound tough. But what about those times
Right.
when we're not physically sick, but we're just burnt out,
Yeah.
you know? Can we fake a sick voice for a mental health day?
That's where things get a bit tricky,
Yeah.
ethically speaking.
I see what you mean.
While mental health is just as important as physical health, there's a debate about whether it's okay to use the same tactics for calling out.
Yeah, it feels a bit dishonest.
Right.
Even though the need for a break is real.
Exactly. The Fluent Speak hosts didn't actually get into this aspect of it,
Okay.
but it's definitely something to think about.
Yeah.
It raises these important questions about how we talk about mental health in the workplace
Mhm.
and whether the systems that we have in place right now actually adequately address our needs.
Yeah, it makes you wonder if we need a new vocabulary altogether,
Yeah.
something that allows us to communicate our need for a mental health break
Yeah.
without resorting to faking a cough.
That's a really thought-provoking idea.
Well.
It would require a cultural shift, but it could be a step towards destigmatizing mental health
For sure.
and creating a more supportive work environment.
Okay,
Yeah.
so for now, we're still navigating this existing system.
Yeah.
But let's get back to the practicalities of calling in sick.
Okay.
The Fluent Speak episode also touched on something I hadn't really considered before,
Mm.
the importance of timing.
Oh, yeah. Timing can be everything. Calling too early might make it seem like you haven't even tried to make it in.
Right.
Well, calling too late can really disrupt the workflow. It's a delicate balance.
So there's a sweet spot.
Yeah.
Not too eager to bail,
Right.
but not leaving everyone in the lurch either.
Right.
This is making me realize how much strategy goes into calling in sick.
It's true. There's a real art to it.
It's a performance.
You have to consider the language, the tone, the timing,
Yeah.
and even your workplace culture.
Oh, that's a good point.
Some companies are very strict about sick leave,
Yeah.
while others are more flexible,
Right.
so you might need to adjust your approach accordingly.
Right. And let's not forget about different personalities.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Some bosses might need a detailed explanation of your symptoms, while others might just appreciate a quick heads up.
Mm-hmm.
It's like reading your audience, except your audience is your boss.
Exactly.
Um,
And that comes with experience and a good dose of emotional intelligence.
This has been so eye-opening. It's like we've uncovered a whole hidden world of communication strategies for something we thought we already knew how to do.
Yeah.
What stands out to you as the most surprising takeaway
Yeah.
from all the research you've done on this?
You know what's consistently surprised me is the sheer diversity of cultural approaches to calling in sick.
Oh, I bet there are some wild ones out there.
There are.
Tell me more.
Like, for example, in Japan, it's considered extremely rude to call in sick on a Monday or a Friday.
Oh, wow.
It's seen as taking advantage of the system to extend your weekend.
Wow. I never would have guessed that. It makes sense.
Yeah.
But it's definitely different from what we're used to. What about other countries?
Yeah. Well, in Germany, there's a strong emphasis on providing a doctor's note,
Really?
even for minor illnesses. It's about having official documentation to justify your absence.
Interesting. I can see how that could create a culture of accountability, but it also seems like it could be a hassle if you just have a cold.
Right.
So what's the takeaway for our listeners? How can they navigate these potential cultural differences if they're working or traveling abroad?
I'd say the key is to do your research beforehand.
Okay.
Try to learn about the local customs and expectations around sick leave.
Good point.
Are there any resources you recommend for this kind of thing?
There are some excellent websites and travel guides
Okay.
that delve into cultural etiquette. You can also ask colleagues or friends who are familiar with the local culture.
That's a great tip. And what about those times when you're unsure about something? Better to err on the side of caution.
I would say so. When in doubt, it's always best to be respectful and observe how others handle similar situations.
It's all about being a cultural detective.
Observing, asking questions,
Yeah,
and being open to new ways of doing things.
for sure.
You know, this deep dive has really highlighted how even the most mundane aspects of life can be steeped in cultural meaning.
It's true. And that's why I find this topic so fascinating. It's a reminder that communication is about so much more than just words.
Yeah.
It's about understanding the unspoken rules, the cultural context, and the human needs
Right.
behind those words.
This has been such a thought-provoking conversation. We started with some simple phrases for calling in sick, And we ended up exploring cultural differences, ethical considerations,
Mhm.
and even the future of workplace wellness.
I know. It's amazing how much we've uncovered.
It's amazing how much we've uncovered. I'm already thinking about calling in sick in a whole new light.
That's the goal. To equip you with the knowledge and insights to navigate these everyday situations with more confidence and awareness.
But before we send our listeners off to practice their most convincing sick voice, I have one final thought-provoking question for them to consider.
Yeah.
What if we kind of shifted our mindset about calling in sick altogether?
Yeah.
Like, imagine if instead of viewing it as this necessary evil
Yeah.
or a potential source of guilt, we saw it as an act of self-care
Oh, wow.
and a way to protect the health of the entire workplace.
That's a powerful reframing. It challenges us to move beyond that individualistic perspective of
Yeah.
me versus my boss
Right.
and think about the collective good.
Exactly. Because when someone comes to work sick,
Mm-hmm.
they're not just risking their own health,
Right?
they're potentially exposing everyone else to illness.
Exactly.
It's counterproductive in the long run.
Absolutely. And it speaks to a larger issue of workplace culture.
Yeah.
Do we value presenteeism or do we prioritize the well-being of our employees?
Yeah.
And that's a question that I think more and more companies are grappling with these days.
It's about creating a culture where people feel comfortable taking time off when they need it
Yeah.
without fear of judgment or repercussions.
And that requires a shift in mindset from both employers and employees.
Right.
It's about recognizing that rest and recovery are essential
Yeah.
for productivity and overall well-being.
So true. It's like that saying, you can't pour from an empty cup.
Yeah.
If we're constantly pushing ourselves to the limit, we're not doing our best work,
Right.
and we're certainly not doing ourselves any favors.
And that's where language comes in again.
Okay.
How can we change the way we talk about sick leave to
Mhm.
reflect this more holistic perspective? Maybe instead of calling in sick, we talk about taking a well-being day.
I love that. It shifts the focus from illness to wellness.
Right.
It's about proactively taking care of ourselves,
Exactly.
not just reacting to feeling awful.
It's about empowering individuals to prioritize their health
Yeah.
and recognizing that doing so benefits everyone in the workplace.
Well, this has been a truly fascinating deep dive. We started with some simple phrases for calling in sick. We ended up exploring cultural differences,
Yeah.
ethical considerations, and even the future of workplace wellness. It's amazing how much we've uncovered.
It is. It really is.
I'm already thinking about calling in sick in a whole new light.
That's what we want.
So the next time you find yourself reaching for the phone to call in sick,
Mm-hmm.
remember everything we've discussed today. Consider the language you use, the timing of your call, and the cultural context of your workplace.
Yeah.
But most importantly, listen to your body
Yes.
and prioritize your well-being.
Well said.
Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and stay healthy.